Before we get started today, I just want to talk to you a little bit about how I prep my kitchen surfaces. And I use this particular concentrated botanical disinfectant. It's a hospital grade disinfectant. It's made with thyme oil and some citric acid, so it smells really fantastic. It's really easy to use, and you just spritz it down on a non-porous surface. Not really great for marble or stone, but it's great for my cutting board. And it takes about 30 seconds up to 10 minutes to kill all kinds of things, as you can see on the label here, from the swine flu to the bacteria that causes the HIV or AIDS virus to salmonella to E. coli. So I like to use this on my cutting board again, on my countertops. I spray it down on any particular serving bowls or dishes that I'm going to be using, and you just kind of let it sit there for a little while, and then you can pat it dry with some paper towels. I also frequently wash my hands with warm soapy water, a good quality soap that's not going to have a big perfume or fragrance in it that will transfer from your hands to whatever you're working with. Hot soapy water, and I try to do that frequently in between different types of ingredients to prevent cross-contamination, and especially when handling raw meats. To begin, we're going to start by beating a room temperature 8-ounce block of cream cheese. You can use full fat or a third less fat, whatever type of cream cheese you're welcome to find in the grocery store. Just leave it out on your counter for a few hours so it softens up to room temperature. So I'm going to take my mixer and I'm going to beat that up until it's creamed. After getting it to a pretty decent creamy consistency, I like to add about a half teaspoon of vanilla extract and a half teaspoon of peppermint extract. You can experiment with a little less or a little more to your taste. You can also try almond extract with vanilla. I would always recommend having some level of vanilla, even if it's half and half or a little bit less. You could also try orange, almond. Experiment again. Just keep mixing until all of your extracts are well incorporated and the batter is nice and fluffy and creamy. I would recommend, before we move on to adding the powdered sugar, that you add a gel type coloring. Today I'll be using a leaf green icing color from Wilton's. You can find these in Walmart or in a lot of other department and baking stores. I recommend the gel rather than the liquid so it doesn't add to the batter too much as far as making it loose or sticky. You don't need very much of the gel, just a couple of drops until it reaches your desired color. Go a little darker or a little lighter. You can even let it stay swirled and not stay as solid. It would also be at this step, if you'd like to do two different colors, that you would split your batter in half and do a little bit in one color, maybe a red or a pink, or leave some white and have some green. Again, play with it and figure out what works for you. But remember, just one drop of the gel, maybe off the end of a toothpick, is probably all you need. And then you just want to take your mixer and whip it up again to make sure the color is well incorporated. Before we start adding the powdered sugar, I would suggest taking out some parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, you can find some non-stick aluminum foil or a Silpat, but I prefer the parchment paper. You could also use butcher paper if you have that. You can put it out on a cookie sheet on your counter. Today I'm going to use it right on top of my stove because, again, we don't need to cook anything, but I would have it put out and ready so that after we've added the sugar, you're ready to go ahead and move on to the next step. From a 1-pound box of confectioner's sugar, I'm going to start out by adding about half of the confectioner's sugar to my cream cheese mixture. And I'm going to incorporate that slowly with my mixer first before I add any more. And I say slowly so we don't end up with powdered sugar all over. I've increased the speed now so that I can make this a more smooth, creamy consistency, as you can see here. And I'm going to stop the mixer and get ready to incorporate more. So this will start to form a dough. At this stage, it's more of a frosting consistency. I've now added the second half of my powdered sugar, and I will beat that in, and it should start to form a dough-like ball. You may find you need to add a little more or a little less powdered sugar to your mix based on how much flavoring that you added to your cream cheese or the type of cream cheese that you bought. So I'm going to start with this, and as I mix it, again starting slow and then going a little faster, it should start to pull together to form a ball. At this point, now that it's pulled into a ball, I take a little bit more of my powdered sugar and I make sure my hands are washed well and dried so that they're not too wet. I add a little bit more powdered sugar to the bowl, and as you can see, I'm going to knead it in just like you would with a bread dough. If you find that your dough is sticky, it just needs a little more powdered sugar. And at this point, too much is not a big deal. We'll use some on our surface and just put a little on your hands. And I'm going to go ahead and knead to get the remaining powdered sugar incorporated into my dough. Okay, now I've taken a small plate with a fork, and on my plate I've added some powdered sugar. I also mixed in a little bit of the super fine sugar. You don't have to do that though. I just find that it makes the little mints come out a little bit more glittery. And what we're going to do is we're going to take about a small teaspoon. Okay, now I've taken a little bit of powdered sugar and some of my glitter powder, and I've put it down on my parchment paper just so that these don't stick. I'm going to take and make 1/2 inch size little balls with a little bit of powdered sugar again on my hands. So I roll them into a ball. I'm going to put them down on my parchment paper, and again, whatever you're using. I'm going to take a fork dipped in the powdered sugar so it doesn't stick, and just press lightly. Just like that. I'm going to continue to make probably 50 or 60 of these based on how much dough I have. And again, this is where you would go and you would get some of the different colors, your different flavors, for example. And we're just going to roll them into little balls, put them down, take the fork, and press down. That one sticks. No big deal. You can also, at this point, use some little candy molds if you'd like to mold them into some shapes. And if you do want to mold them into shapes, you want to make sure that you put some superfine sugar, powdered sugar, all over the ball before you press it down into the mold so that it does come out. Today, I'm just going to stick with the little fork presses. Those look good enough for me. an hour and a half. Depends on the size and thickness of your cream mints. The smaller ones will dry up faster, and the larger, thicker ones might take a little longer. At this point, we're not going to refrigerate them. We're not going to heat them up. We're just going to let them sit out and air dry, like I said, until they become a little bit more firm. You'll notice that a lot of the powdered sugar that's around them will absorb into them while they're sitting. Now on to decorating these cream mints. You can dust some different colored sugars on them while they're setting up to get a little bit more firm. You can also go back and try some different colors, some different flavors, and leave them out to set up. So you can have those out for guests or to give them away for the holidays. You could go all white. Use them for Christmas, for New Year's, for Easter. They're good anytime. You can also get a piping bag and pipe out some stars. Try to get a nice big open tip for your piping bag. You can do a couple different colors and flavors. Make sure you do that on your parchment paper and let them sit to get a little bit more set up. You can also get a mold, like for the holidays I have a snowflake mold, and you can put a little powdered sugar into the mold, put the mixture into the mold, and then pop them in the freezer, and they'll set up and you can pop them out, and then you can store them pretty well. You can also put the cream mints in the freezer for a few minutes and then dip them in some melted chocolate. That looks pretty nice. You can see I've done that here with some white ones, which would be great with coconut or with mint or with, any kind of a flavor you can come up with. You can also dip them completely in chocolate and make yourself a peppermint patty or a mint cream. And those are great for all kinds of holidays too. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm going to throw some of mine in a Ziploc bag for the freezer, some for the fridge, and I'll see you next time.